can you provide a practical idea of how the Holy Spirit affects us on a daily basis? You were a seminary more recently than I was.
Walter taught at a seminary more recently than I did. I don't know. I feel like we know the Holy Spirit when we encounter it. We feel it physically in our bodies. I don't know about you, but I get goosebumps. I sense that God is at work in something that's happening. It's in a conversation. It's in an encounter. It's a phone call that you don't expect. It's a ministry that emerges where something seemed hopeless before, and all of a sudden there's a way forward that emerges. I don't know. I think the Holy Spirit is at work and moving among us in all kinds of ways, and I can't claim to know all of them, but I certainly know it when I see it. That's what I would say.
I would say the answer is blowing in the wind.
Very good. Yeah.
I think the Holy Spirit disquiets us and pushes us where we had not intended to go.
Yeah, makes us uncomfortable in some way.
And surprises us so that we once in a while say, I don't know what came over me. I found myself doing that, I think. Yeah.
Let me talk about the Trinity for a second. We know that of God the Father as the ground of all being, and we know the Son is the way in which the Father knows himself as other. The Holy Spirit is the person of the Trinity that is constantly attracting the Father toward the Son and the Son towards the Father. And therefore, at the very heart of all being, in the very nature of God, is this movement from self to other, so that connection and community are inseparable from each other. So the Holy Spirit, who is then sent, sort of overflows out of the abundance of God's love into our lives, is always catching our attention to notice the neighbor, to notice other people, to notice the other person that's in front of us, to help us to listen to what they're saying and to be able to discern what God's message is to us through them. It's everywhere, millions of times a day during our lives.
I think a lot of times we're not even paying attention, that we just miss all of the moments that the Holy Spirit's showing up.
Do you think that practically the sort of mainline churches have something to learn from Pentecostalism about this?
I do indeed. And I think if we went back to the church as Paul describes it, there would be a lot of shouting and yelling and out-of-control behavior that we would be quite surprised by as Episcopalians or whatever we are as mainline people. No, the early church was, you can see from Paul's letters, they were prophesying, they were speaking in tongues, they were singing in the Spirit. They were so aware of the presence of the risen Christ and the Holy Spirit in their midst that they were completely taken out of themselves. You know, the word ecstasy means to stand outside yourself. So they were taken outside of themselves into ecstasy. I'll say one where my dean in seminary used to say that, I think he was being a little bit generous here, but he said the reason Episcopalians are so uptight in worship is because we're afraid that if we really let go, we would not be behaving properly.
But I also think, I guess one of the things to your point, Walter, is that I think perhaps the church already has been changed by the Holy Spirit. I think we're seeing this movement happening all around us. I think the church is opening itself up. If you look at this movement of emergence that people are talking about, I think that's the work of the Holy Spirit. I've often said when I talk to people about this that, in fact, I think that there is a level of people thinking that we're the one doing the work of God, but the fact is God's already out in front of us, and that's the Holy Spirit. God is making all of this happen. We're not making it happen. And in that way, I think the Holy Spirit's already at work ahead of us before we've even acknowledged it.
So do you think that that recognizing that the Spirit is out in front of us and doing the work is some answer to the fatigue of the church when we imagine excessively that it's our work?
Yes, I do. I think that we have to let go of a lot of that and say that if it's meant to be, it's going to happen, and that we're going to feel so compelled by the Holy Spirit that we can't stop ourselves from doing the things that must be done. And the stuff that doesn't have to be done, well, it'll take care of itself.